Hello, my name is Moses Mkisa.
And my name is Angela Okolo.
And we would like to welcome you to MC University. This is a Missional Community Leaders Training for Worship Harvest Ministries, Missional Community Leaders, and other Missional Community Leaders from other churches who find this valuable. So thank you so much for joining us. Wherever you're joining us from, welcome to MC University. All right, so this is session 1, and we're just going to give you a little bit of history and as to why we are doing this. What are you looking forward to, Angela?
I am looking forward to relearning also myself. just remembering all those things. I'm looking forward to telling the stories of today. But I'm also looking forward to the explosive growth that's going to come from attending the university. Yeah.
Come on now. Thank you so much. So, let's dive into it straight away.
Let's do it.
So, where did this whole thing start? So, Worship Harvest is a movement of the gospel, discipleship, and mission. Now, right there in the middle, you had the word discipleship. Mm-hmm. So, we are a discipling movement. And we started when we were at the university. Both you and I, we were going to St. Francis Chapel,
yes.
Pastored by Uncle Ben and Auntie Joy, St. Francis Chapel, Makerere University. And while we were there, I was part of Catalyze 96, and you were part of
Catalyze 99.
Ooh.
Ooh.
So, over time, we were part of Catalyze. The Catalyze program was started by Uncle Ben and Auntie Joy. And I was a part of it, and you were also part of it. And usually, it started when people are in their senior 6 vacation. Yeah. Those who are out of Uganda, we have 6 years of high school, and then at the end of that, there's a bit of a gap before you go to uni. So that was the target group. And so what happened is that when people went to uni, most of them going to Makerere University because that's where the chapel was, we continued through with Catalyze through our university years.
Yes. Yeah.
But usually it was active for only the 3 years where most of the students were at the university. Usually when people left after their 3-year courses, everything ended. In 96, my leader was Patrick Miyinda, who after his 3-year course handed over to me about 2 other people to continue. And that's when I got the wisdom of recruiting other people from other years into the thing, and we kept going. And some of those people were people like Dr. Richard Zigude.
Come on now.
Dr. Unisa Dubango.
Come on.
Pastor Eddie Mwesige from Watoto.
Hey.
Among others.
Samali?
Yeah. Samali Kahunde.
Yes.
Akongo. And a few other people. In my 5th year, because I was doing a 5-year course, we realized that also was going to die. And then that's when God gave us a vision of starting what we called at the time Catalyze Ministries, which was to call back all the previous years Catalyzers and start something energetic using our gifts to spread the gospel. And we started it in December 1st, 2000, and it was explosive. You were there. Yes. Tell us a little bit.
The thing I remember the most is just the energy and the vibe and just people's passion. I think that Catalyze had built such momentum in people, and then suddenly you've left and you're like, what do I do with all this energy, with all this? I want to serve God. And then we just came back together. Yeah. Just the energy to serve God. That's what I remember. It was such a good vibe.
So that went on from 2001, we are young, to 2005. About 2002, I was invited by Uncle Ben for a conversation because our Catalyze Ministries, because of all the energy and everything that was going, was starting to swallow up the other Catalyze program at St. Francis. So we needed to change the name so that people don't confuse Catalyze Ministries for Catalyze program. So that's when we renamed it Worship Harvest. And so that's the name we adopted. It should have been around 2002. And then we continued flowing with that. And then 2005, it looked like Worship Harvest had reached the end of its legs. Yes. because now people had graduated, people were getting married, people had jobs, people were busy. It was generally
mostly that season, getting married, work.
I got married 2003.
Hey.
Some of you guys delayed.
Yeah.
So work, family, etc. It really looked like this was it. It really looked like it was going to end. I remember some of the people in the earlier worship harvest, Diana Mahumure, Peter Nkwera, Julian Karugaba, Timothy Sebalamu, Evangelina Tukunda. Who else do you remember?
Philip
Nsale. He couldn't sing a song and
his
complete
shirt
it without his shirt getting untucked.
coming
That
out,
was the mark of Philip Nsale. Every time he started the song, you just somewhere around verse 2, the shirt is going to get untucked. It was magical. Who else do you remember in those days?
These
Of course,
guys that
Paulo.
Paulo
Mugarura, who was our music director.
Who ate us? He used to eat us.
Yeah, man, we had to get our act together because of Paulo. So he really formed the foundation of our musical culture at Worship Harvest today. So kudos to you, Paulo. Alan Chisitu, who passed on. He was very pivotal. Marcus Chiriowa.
Mark D
on the drums.
Playing the drums.
Yes, the drums on the keyboard. SP Chinobe was in at one point. Yes.
And
Andrew Amailuk.
He at some point didn't he play bass guitar?
He was a guitar acoustic.
Yes.
Yeah. It was fun those days. Francis Kagwa. Additional keys.
Francis Kagwa. I'm trying. I can't believe the name has gone. He used to play guitar and he married a soprano.
Wow.
They wrote.
That's Andrea Mailuk.
Yes, Andrea Mailuk.
I told you about Evelyn Omala, who became Mailuk. Yes. And Pastor B3 was in, I think, around sometime in there. Pastor Jeremy.
She joined in that confusion of Come Alive Ministries, not knowing which
Pastor
one to join.
B3, Pastor Jeremy. Quite a number of people who have been around. They're now part of the furniture. Pastor Dennis Mahande.
Yeah, Dr.
Kulo. Dr. Kulo, of course. Wow. Of course, Pastor Ari was an alto. Do you remember that? Prosi Yangu, Mrs. Yangu, at that time she was a Kale, she was also an alto.
Yes.
And so we just had fun doing all of that, going out, singing, and all of that. And then, so it was coming to sort of an end. And then 2005, October, I remember it very well. It was a Tuesday morning, 5 o'clock. I seemed to be woken up by God. And there was this struggle about planting a church. It's the most scary thing that ever happened to me.
I remember that email. Yeah. You sent me an email. I don't know if you remember.
What was I saying?
So, in 2005, so remember I'd gone to South Africa to study. And so we used to communicate on email. I'd come back 2 times a year. So I'd come back in June, July, and I'd come back in December, be there December, January, and Feb. So you sent me an email saying you're going to start a church.
Did you respond?
I responded. I'm going to find that email. And I told you, let's come back and we talk. And we had the conversation at
Garden City.
Yes.
Food court.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember. Yeah. So that's when the whole thing of starting the church came up. And there were very many long conversations between October.
Heavy conversations.
Heavy conversations between October 2005 and January 2006. So January 2006, by that time we had sort of clearly defined who is going to start the church, who is staying at St. Francis to continue with the program. So those of us who are going to start the church, we left and went and attended church at Omega Healing Center under Pastor Michael Chaze for 3 months. That's where we were now training to go to start, and we were part of their worship team for those 3 months. And then on April 2nd, 2006, we launched the church. So that was the beginning. So we launched the church April 2nd, 2000. We called it House of Praise because we hadn't agreed with Uncle Ben and Auntie Joy about our departure, and so we couldn't go use Worship Harvest. So we're House of Praise for 1 year and some months, and then September 30th, 2007 is when we got the blessing from Uncle Ben to go now and really do it. And so we reverted to using Worship Harvest. So those were the pre-church days.
Yes.
Now, the reason we are talking about all of this, you might be thinking, what does this have to do with MC University? Sometimes you need to understand your history to be able to project better your future. Because we realized that from way back then, we were already doing discipleship, even though we didn't know that's what was called.
Yes.
We were a missional community, even though we didn't have the language for it.
We didn't have the language.
Yeah, we didn't know that we were a missional community. We didn't use that word. We were an MC. MC, when you hear MC, it's short for missional community. So MC University is Missional Community University.
Yes.
So we were already a missional community, even though we didn't know. So then we start the church, and because we had that background of discipleship coming from St. Francis, Uncle Ben was an excellent discipler. We knew deep down that's what we desired. We didn't want to just start another church in the city to add to the numbers of churches that were there.
Yes.
We really desired discipleship, but we didn't know what to do. The only example, we had the natural example from Uncle Ben, having been at St. Francis, going to his home every Sunday after church, eating everything, coming back for 4 o'clock service. But the only other church that was sort of having a structured discipleship system in the city was Watoto Church. At that time, KPC. KPC Sales. Yeah. So that's what we copied. We tried out sales. Man, we sweated with sales. We kept pushing sales. We thought, okay, no, let's be creative. Maybe when people hear sales, they'll think we're talking about KPC sales. Yeah, we still are very creative.
We still are.
So we shifted the name. We called them Heart Connection. Come on now.
We spelled it with an, didn't you say with an X?
Are you sure?
Yes.
Yeah, with an X, connection. With an X. So we were now Heart Connection. Come on now. So we tried Heart Connection. Who was in charge of Heart Connection?
I don't remember.
Wasn't that? I don't remember who was in charge of Heart Connection, but we pushed Heart Connection, and then it didn't work very well. For some reason, people were not joining the groups, even though we were a small church. Maybe because we were a small church. It's like, if you are 30, why should people be split into groups? Anyway. So,
30.
So as we kept growing, then enter Christine Namagulu.
Yes.
We handed it over to Christine Namagulu. Yes. She just redid everything and called them hangout groups. Hogs. So now it was based on what you want to do in your hangout. There was a group that used to swim at Fairway Hotel. That was a hog. Other people used to meet over to read.
You were in the movies group?
I was in the movies hog.
We would go out with Dr. Kulo.
We would go watching movies. Wow.
Oh my gosh.
We've come from far. Anyway, so there was a hog for movies, there was a hog for swimming, there was a hog for readers, there was a hog for whatever. I don't remember whether we had one for gardening. But you just went with what worked with you. So as you could imagine, the hogs didn't work out. So we shifted them to links. Links. I think at that time, Christine was working with David Singora.
Christine was working with David. And they would send out, we're trying to, when you're yearning for something, so this time she'd even send, remember weekly programs?
Yeah.
And we are trying to find a way to get the program to all the links. What was WhatsApp there? Would send an email.
There was no WhatsApp.
There was no
WhatsApp.
Print.
Yeah.
And people pick
from the
lessons.
hub.
Yeah, from the hub or at church on Sunday.
Yeah. Wow. So anyway, hogs. Now we are in links. So one day I go to visit Pastor Michael Chaza, and then he tells me about G12 discipleship system, which they were using at Omega Healing Center, and I think it came from South America, and how effective it is. So I came back and told people now links are dead. It's now what? G12. Hey! So
You even wrote a book.
Yeah, I even wrote a
Hey.
book, Government of 12.
12.
It's one of my books I've written. For those who have never seen it, just look out for the book, Government of 12. I'm sure Pastor Jeremy has it in the archives.
Yes.
So I wrote a book, G12, and we rolled out G12. So
Hey.
at that time we had grown in number. I
Yes,
remember the
we
launch Sunday afternoon at Katikati.
At Katikati.
And so the problem with the G12s is someone had to choose you to be in their
Yes.
12.
Yes.
Ha!
And I think it started at, the eldership levels. The elders
It was the
invite-
elders
Yes.
who were in our G12, Pastor
Yes.
Ari and I,
Yes.
and then the elders needed to invite you in
Invite-
their G12. At that time, you were not elders, you were
No,
not in our
yet.
G12.
So I was
But I
invited
remember,
into the Nsubugas. Yes.
so I remember the Nsubugas were there,
Yeah.
the Rutabanzibwas,
Yes.
the Agabas,
Yes.
who else
Whether
was?
Chirio was there at that point.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
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 Were Biamanzi's elders at that time? I don't
Not
think so.
because they were first invited into the Nsubugas G12.
Yeah.
Then I think after a week they became elders or something.
So those original elders who chose the G12s, we send you greetings. Thank you. You played a critical role in the journey that we have been on.
Yes.
JK was an elder.
Yes.
And Gladys.
Yes.
I don't know if they had a G12.
I don't remember.
Yeah, but
I
there were
don't
a
remember.
couple of people who were in our G12, and so they went out and
Yes.
selected people into their G12. So it started growing like that. So
Yes.
if you are in someone's G12, then you also
You
had your
start
own
a
G12,
Yes.
and then that person, they had a G12.
Yeah.
Now, here was the problem. You had to be invited into a G12.
Yep.
And that made a lot of people very unhappy for not being invited
Part of that club.
into the G12s. Hey! Oh, so but you can see that all the time we are struggling to figure out the discipleship question, and we are not nailing it yet. Now, God is good
All the time.
all the time.
God is good.
So, God heard our cry. God heard our cry. In 2012, June 2012, I remember at that time we had sort of started getting into a relationship with St. Andrew's Church, Bukoto, and Reverend Moses Isabrie was the pastor there, the vicar, and he invited us to a training. Oh, I've remembered who else was on G12. In our G12, what? Patrick Mugenyi.
Yes.
Patrick and Evelyn Mugenyi, because I
Yes.
remember he was there for that training.
Yes.
So we are invited to this training at St. Andrews. We are sort of trying to be friends with Reverend Moses. So we're like, what about? Let's go. So we went. I think we're about 5 of us from Worship Harvest. Patrick Mugenyi was there. I think Sam Chiraba was there. I was there, and maybe, were you there? You were not
I
there.
wasn't there.
Like another person or two. I don't know if Pastor Ari was there. But I remember we were 5 from Worship Harvest, and we were the biggest delegation at the training.
With 5.
Yes. So we get to St. Andrews, and there were 2 men. One of them was Tim Lindsay, and the other was Jean-Marc Torrens. They were from Switzerland, and they had a relationship with St. Andrews, and I think Reverend Moses had visited them, and now they were coming to visit them, and they decided to do a training. So we get there, and they are talking about life shapes, learning circle, invitation and challenge, up in out, the triangle of rhythms, and we're like, we're not clicking that stuff. Now they were teaching us stuff that they had been taught by Mike Breen. But we were not like really understanding it. So it was a 2-day training. We took notes. I went back there to took notes. We got a copy of the book, Building a Discipling Culture by Mike Breen. I have here a copy of the new edition.
The new edition. It looks awesome.
Yeah, BDC by Mike Breen. This book, if you're a missional community leader in Worship Harvest, you must read this book. Or if you want to understand what you're doing. This is the book that will show you the DNA of discipleship. And together with it, there's this other book, Leading
very
Missional Communities. This gives you a practice, the praxis for leading an MC. This gives you the sort of the roots, the heart, understanding what it is you're doing.
Yes.
This shows you what to do. So, there we got a copy of the book, Building a Discipling Culture. End of training, bye-bye. We have books, And then, when God is determined to bless you. So one day, Reverend Moses gives me a call. He's like, remember Tim who was here for the training? He's coming back to Uganda. Would you like to connect with him?
Wow.
So I'm like, okay. So as it turns out, Tim and Rebecca Lindsay and their family were supposed to go to America to work at a church called Seacoast Church. It's a double mega church. And they had sold all their things in Switzerland. Okay. And they were supposed to go. Now, their work visas were delayed.
Wow.
Now, because they have sold everything in Switzerland, I think they were staying at Rebecca's parents' house. Yes. It was not sustainable for them to stay there. Switzerland is not a cheap country to live in. So they couldn't go to America. They couldn't stay in Switzerland. They needed a place to wait for their visas. They decided to come to Uganda to wait from here. So they moved here, Tim, Rebecca, and their whole family, their kids. The kids went to Word of Life School.
Word of Life.
And then in those 3 months between August and November, August, October, September, and then mid-August to mid-November, they came. They were guests of St. Andrews, remember? But I think St. Andrews hadn't yet gained traction in their building a discipling culture. For us, because we were already doing G12, and we had looked at some of the brain materials, we couldn't make sense of it. We knew there was a desire there for something, but we didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So they come, and then they asked, Tim and Rebecca asked to have lunch with Pastor Ari and I every week.
Wow.
So we started having lunch with them weekly. I think it was either Monday lunch or Tuesday lunch. As we had lunch, and I really want to thank Tim and Rebecca for their love and insistence, because, you don't know what you don't know. As we had lunch, we started to understand the things they had been talking about in the training. So we had lunch. And then we started connecting them with some of the leaders in Worship Harvest. And then we started connecting them with some of the other pastors that we were in relationship with.
Yes.
By the time they left in November, we were sold.
MCs had started.
It was now MCs.
Yes.
Now we had to kill the G12s. Wow, it's been quite the journey. We had to kill the G12s. 2012, at that time, we had planted Worship Harvest in Alia.
Yes.
So we had 2 locations. So we start experimenting with MCs. Like now it's G12, well, 12 people. Now MCs were bigger. So people started MCs. I remember that Suga's MC. It used to meet at Nalia. It was huge. Were you guys leading an MC at that time?
Yes. We started we were leading an MC. Like it just generated, because it had grown from G12, we just sent it to MC.
So now we just ask the G12 leaders, morph your G12 into an MC, open it up a bit, because the idea was that the MC was bigger, so it was a better social space where the door was a little bit open. People could easily slide in and out.
Could invite,
because the G12 was tight. You were committed as a disciple from the get-go. With MC, you could gain commitment over time.
Over time,
And so we started going at it, missional community. We had a couple of missional communities. I think they were doing well. They were buzzing. You guys were leading an MC. Then Subkas were leading an MC. Where WMAs is leading an MC, I think so.
Yeah.
And a few other leaders. Because now we were 2 locations, Nalia and Katikati. So some MC leaders were there, some MC leaders were here. And so this thing now started gaining traction. And so I kept pushing. 2012, 2013, 2014. There was an MC in Entebbe, remember?
Yes.
Led by Rachel Parsons. That's the MC that planted Worship Harvest Entebbe. Now remember Patricia
Amoko then.
or Moko then, now
Muhumuza.
Muhumuza, who started Worship Harvest Ginger. They started as a link.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It was a link.
Yeah, Ginger Link. There was Link White, and Link Aroma.
Wow.
Now, Link White, they named it Link White because they met in Ginger and Jeru across the river. And Link Aroma was at Kaunye Lane. So they... So Eric Keba, Timothy Mwalanya, and then Patricia. Yes. So those links that was one of the good experiments. The 3 links formed one big missional community, and then they planted a location.
Wow.
So we were iterating as we were going. So we had a big MC in Ginger, we had a big MC in Entebbe, we had a couple of MCs in Nalia, a couple of MCs at Katikati. And so now it's like we were starting to get a hang of it.
Yeah.
There was a turning point, though. I think it was 2016. We had been going, and at that time we had only about maybe, was it 10 MCs?
They were not.
Or 16. It was
I feel like it was 16.
Yeah, I think it was 16 MCs, yeah. And then we had a massive training program. You remember it? We had here at Worship Harvest Nalia Saturdays, every Saturday for about 6 weeks.
Yes.
At the end of that massive training program, our 16 MCs multiplied, and we just exploded.
Yeah.
I think we sort of doubled.
Yes.
2016. So that's when now, after that training, the MCs grew, and we kept going 2017, 18, 2019, 2020. So by 2020, January 2020, we had 132 missional communities.
And we were celebrating.
And yeah, it was awesome. Because we had gone from that 16. I remember we first hit like 50 MCs in 2016, early 17.
Yes.
It was massive.
Yeah. I remember that time we're like, oh my gosh, like just at that point we think, how are we going to train people?
It was so chaotic.
How are we going to,
it was just...
We didn't know how to deal with 50 MCs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, in 1 year and a half thereabouts. So we grappled with the whole thing 2017, 2018.
I remember Worship Harvest Bugulabe at that point celebrating 11 MCs.
Yeah.
Hey, we're like, we are 11 missional communities.
Because when you went, you started as one missional community.
And then we just...
And then you kept multiplying.
Yes, we broke up.
So, but what I remember is that by Jan 2020, we had 132 missional communities. Wow. How did we get there? We took the stuff in these books.
Yep. It was a requirement those
BDC,
days, actually.
Yeah. And we are encouraging people now, please read this as a missional community leader. And then we took the stuff in this book, and we iterated and we added things, and we started growing. We grew. So Mike Breen, we were now really drinking the Mike Breen stuff fully.
Yes.
And we grew. Then in 2020, mid-2020, we started listening to Bishop Doug and the whole thing of following, culture of honor, shifting the culture in the church. Because remember, we were doing discipleship, we were doing well, but we didn't have the biblical culture that enables discipleship.
Yes.
We are doing a biblical concept with the current modern sort of secular culture. We are all equal, so you disciple me on my terms. And, you can't disciple someone on their terms.
You really can't.
And so when we shifted the culture at the end of 2020, towards the end, what has happened in the last 1 year is by about September 2020, we had 180 missional committees. We had added 50 missional committees. Things were accelerating. But as I talk today, we have more than 880 missional communities. In the last 1 year, we have added 700 plus missional communities. 700 plus. Now, do you know what the result of that is?
Please, what is the result of having 700 missional communities?
Added in 1 year.
In 1 year.
Good chaos.
Totally.
Just too
We
much
thought 50
chaos.
was chaos.
We thought 50 was chaos. Hey, Pastor B3 sent me a message saying, I think 60 MCs were added last week.
60
Yeah.
in 1 week?
Yeah. So
Okay.
this is flying at a completely different level. That's why we have started MC University.
Yes.
Because we can no longer catch up with all of you mission community leaders to train you wherever you are.
Yeah.
We can't do events quickly enough. We can't produce materials quickly enough.
Yes.
So this video and the others that will come, the other sessions, it's a little bit of a humble offering to you to be able to equip you to do the work that Christ has called you to do, that Christ has called us as a movement to do, so that we are a discipling movement that's going to change our generation. Our current vision, which will change, I'm sure, in future, is to have 50,000 missional communities that are discipling more than a million people.
Yes.
And with 50,000 missional communities, it means that we'll be reaching 50,000 frontiers, changing communities
Wow.
50,000 times a
50,000.
month, and leading 50,000 people to Christ every
Weekly.
single week.
Weekly.
Every week. So that's the future we are going towards. And so we think that this video is going to be very helpful to you as we learn together to make disciples the way Jesus made disciples.
Yes.
Closing words from you, Pastor Angie.
I'm very excited about this. I'm very excited. There's two things that you have said, that we had the desire. We had the desire. And I know many of you watching have the desire. And you're just wondering, how do you do this? God responds to desire. God responds to desire. And we're going to multiply. And here is a tool that's teaching you how to lead the people that God is giving you. The questions you've had, because sometimes you feel stuck. And so I'm excited that this training is going to unstick you out and help you respond to the desire, and also with what God is doing, for you to be able to lead your missional communities and to multiply.
And to make disciples. So,
Yes.
ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MC University. Thank you so much.